Hello everybody and welcome to today's YouTube video. My name is Brian Fine and I am a martial artist. And today I've just got back from my practice and I want to take a little time to talk about the health promotion or health benefits of the Magui Baguazhang practice that we do. So in holistic internal martial arts like this, they look at the martial art fighting skill and the health abilities and promotion abilities of the art as two sides of the exact same coin. You can only be as good of a fighter as your body is healthy and strong, and without the precision that comes from the kind of training and discipline of being a good fighter, developing those health abilities can be very, very difficult. So one of the core philosophies that makes up Baguazhang is called the Tendon Changing Classic. And there's a lot of information out there about the Tendon Changing Classic. It's been translated into lots of languages, including English. I'm sure you can Google yourself a copy or 5, no problem. And that was created a long time ago by Bodhidharma, or Dhammo, and it's considered one of the highest levels of human health promotion that there is. And the way that that manifests in our Baguazhang practice, it's part of the circle walking, but essentially what we're doing is the opposite of what everybody else does to become strong, healthy, or fit. For example, when most people want to become stronger, a very common thing is to lift weights. So you lift some weights, you make the arms stronger, you do some squats to make the legs stronger, we do sit-ups and things, and we get that cool 6 or 8 pack ab thing going on. In our Bagua practice, we don't do any of that. We consider the weakest parts of the body, and we work directly to make those parts of the body strong. So the parts of the body we consider the weakest are the lower leg, from the knee to the ankle, the lower back, and the nape of the neck. So mostly the back half of our body is what we're after. The reason we look at those parts as the weakest, you can almost think of it as a time lapse of getting old. So if you think about it, we start out as a little baby, you're crawling, eventually get to adulthood and we can suddenly walk around and do things. So as we're sitting all day in our more sedentary type culture, as we're walking around we kind of get lazy about it. And you'll start walking like it's a controlled fall. So you put your leg out and you just kind of lean into it. It's a very, very common way that you'll see people walking around. And then of course we have our phones out and we're leaned over that. What happens when we're not putting our weight into our legs and just using the structure of them instead to walk is that those lower legs will basically atrophy. So even though they're a weight-bearing thing, they lose stability and get a little weaker. And then to make it even easier on our legs, we'll lean over, which makes our back unsupported, just like a basic lever. And when we do that, of course, our head becomes unsupported. So basically, the legs get weaker, can't deal with them, and the back starts to hurt, then the neck starts to hurt, and this is essentially getting old. And I'm sure if you haven't experienced it personally, you can point out lots of people in your own life who have problems with their knees, lower back, and lots of issues with the neck, head, shoulder type region. So what we're doing with our circle walking structure is directly countering that. By that I mean, when we start, and I showed this on my first video, so you can review it if you want it in more detail, we initially sit down and bring the pelvis forward. So, let me take my jacket off here. It's kind of cold, but it'll be easier to see this way. When I sit down, I want to tuck my pelvis forward, and that forces my weight to go over the front of my knees. Now all the weight is going through the legs, and the rest of my structure is supported on top. Then I pull my chin back, and that's going to straighten out the spine. So now my primary, all the power that I'm generating or keeping myself upright with and walking around with is going directly through my legs. Okay? And holding this shape and not letting that break is really difficult to do because I'm using basically the weakest parts of my body to make that happen. So every step we take while holding this kind of structure is promoting the health of our body. The other thing that we have going on big time inside of this structure is we tend to stretch out. So when I'm sitting down to do some circle walking, I don't just put my arms out this way. I actually, it's almost like I grabbed a pole and I'm pulling my back away from it to stretch out my arms as far as I can. And then when I coil, stretching out as much as possible. When I pull my head back, and there's a lot of tension as these things start to stretch, and that begins to improve circulation. So as things stretch out and get longer, we start to see differences in how our bodies are used and how the blood can flow through everything. So something that Li Lao Shi talks about a lot is qi and blood. He doesn't talk about just qi, it's always qi and blood. So it's not some supernatural magic energy. It's, he's generally, at least when he talks to me about it, he's describing a liquid, and we're talking about how that flows through the body. So the health promotion that we're doing has a couple of levels to it. When we first start out, it's all about the structure, which is why I took a few moments here to even explain that again. And it's very difficult when somebody's first starting, they might have injuries or just because of the way our lives have been, to get that structure correct. And a trap for those of you who maybe practiced other styles of martial art before, or maybe even other internal martial arts, is you think you got it. And it can be very, very easy and very common to allow this structure to break as you move. So the very first level of our health promotion is to get that proper structure. That if you need a review of what we talk about in Magui Baguazhang for that, please check out my first video, the Introduction to Circle Walking. I go into a lot more detail on the kind of structure we use. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to just put them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to help you out. But as we walk, you basically lose all the benefits if the structure breaks. So if I'm in my circle walking position and as I go, I start to lean over a bit, or I try to go quickly and I start using inertia to make up for the lack of structure and make it easier. All of that is extremely counterproductive. If you are circle walking to the best of your ability, stretching as much as you can, sitting down as much as possible and working on the legs, you're going to be very hard pressed to do that for more than a few minutes, 10, 15 minutes at most, and you're going to be smoked. Probably need a break and have to move on. So that first level of health promotion in Bagua is get this structure and come to an understanding on how it works. What will happen soon after that through practice is something we call unification of the body. So when the structure is held properly, having it move all as one together fluidly is a big, big deal. And this is a state that when I see another practitioner of not even just Bagua, but any martial art, when I watch someone move, this is the number one thing that I judge. If their body is unified, then they will have proper structure. If their body is not unified, then I start to look at what needs to be improved with that structure. So first, you get the structure right, and then through the practice, usually of the circle walking and palm changes, the body naturally unifies, and that's when we can use that whole body fighting power. That's that highest level of low martial arts skill. It's a really cool thing. It took me several years to get it, at least at the understanding I have it now. And the big reason it took me so long was that I thought I was already doing it. And it wasn't until Li Lao Shi pointed out to me by going hands-on several times that I was able to see the flaws in that and be able to work towards getting true unification. And then being unified is a highly, highly perishable skill. So if you don't practice for a couple of days, even once you've achieved that proper structure, you're going to have to work quite a bit, a couple of days of consecutive practice to lock that in. And eventually, to hold that unified state all the time takes regular daily practice. And that is the number one reason, in my opinion, that we need to practice our circle walking every day. Conventional wisdom when it comes to working out says that it's the rest days when we're recovering from the stress of our workout that we actually get stronger. But with the tendon changing, all of the benefits that we get actually need to have that unified state to be able to happen. So that first level, we find the proper structure, we work into it. The body might have to be conditioned, the spine and musculature around it might have to loosen up. You have to come to an understanding your balance so you don't fall over when you're trying to do it. And you might need some help so you're not causing yourself any injury as you get that proper structure. Once you have that, the next major thing that happens is that unification of the body. And once we have unification of the body, the step that comes next is what I'm working on now. It can take quite a while depending on who you are. I think it definitely varies by practitioner, but it's essentially the elimination of all physiological problems. So if you have knee pain, back pain, neck pain, shoulders, whatever kind of issues you're having with your body, they start to go away. And this is where all those injuries can be rehabilitated forever. I've seen that in my own practice. I've had issues with my knees and back, and those are pretty much gone. And as I work through that, I'm beginning to make my way to the next step. And this is what I originally thought was tendon changing, is this next step where you become very abnormally strong. So something that is extremely evident about Li Laoshi and others like him is they are ridiculously powerful without any obvious muscle buildup. And they're strong in a way that's different from others. So I've trained with a lot of people who are very large and very powerful, extremely big people who do a lot of working out. And they are really strong, but the kind of strength that Li Laoshi has is it's very different. I would say it's sharper, and by that I mean it's more condensed. Just the way he can move his body is just a lot more powerful than you would find from others, and it's a very hard thing to describe unless you feel it yourself. But once we've been in that unified state and trained, and all the physical weaknesses in our body basically go away because we're working on them with every step, the next thing is that with no weaknesses left in the body, you get really strong. And that is the next step in the tendon changing, and something that I don't think a lot of people have. So I don't really want to go into too much more detail than that, because I know this is a lot more talking than I'd normally prefer to do. And I wanted to finish off this video with just a couple of general do's and don'ts that we stick to in our practice. For one, we practice outside all year round. I don't care how cold it is or how hot it is, we go outside to practice. You can practice any time of day you'd like. So if, depending on your schedule, for a couple of months a year, I actually train at night, especially when it's really, really hot in the summer. With my complexion, I don't do super well in direct sunlight. So maybe going out at night is a more convenient thing for you. That's totally cool. We generally do not want to practice on asphalt. You're looking for natural soils to walk in. Not so big of a deal when you're just starting out and maybe just circle walking and doing maybe just a little bit of the single change palm that I've shared with you on this channel. But if you get into a lot of the other practices we're doing, like the power issues, the striking, and a lot of those other movements, walking on these harder surfaces can, be a little rough on the knees and legs in general. So while we're trying to make those stronger, walk on natural grounds, just soils, and you want a relatively flat surface. Ideally, you wear shoes that are flat, and you don't do this barefoot, typically. A couple other things I was warned to not do. Don't go and train without a shirt on. So covering this portion of your chest is a really big deal, and not letting the wind hit your chest, even if it's really hot and sweaty and you feel like that would be a good thing. In Chinese medicine, having the wind hit your chest that way is considered not good for the heart. But strictly from a fighting point of view, The solar plexus sternum region of the body is one of the most vulnerable places we have, so we don't want that to be exposed. So don't go without a shirt. We also avoid training in very high winds, so you should try to find a place where you're not getting buffeted by really high winds. Gentle breeze is okay, but nothing too big. And if it is raining, it is not okay to be training directly in the rain. You should go under a pavilion or something similar during those times. So those are some general tips and things that we stick to when it comes to training in Magui Bagua. As always, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please click that like button below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the other videos that I have coming out soon. If you like this video, please put a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Always looking for more feedback. And if there's anything else you'd like me to share about this martial art, please be sure to let me know in the comments below. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.